Welcome to Around Kansas. I'm Deb Goodrich.
And I'm Michelle Martin.
And behind me, the iconic photo of Bob Dole and Norm MacDonald, the late Norm MacDonald, who satirized Bob Dole on Saturday Night Live. And Bob Dole, with the sense of humor that he had, thought it was hilarious. And when Norm MacDonald passed away, Bob Dole shared on social media, Bob Dole will miss Norm MacDonald, because they were always teasing about how Bob Dole referred to himself in the third person, and that was part of Norm Macdonald's shtick in doing Dole. And of course, the state and the nation have been saying goodbye to one of Kansas' most famous and most beloved sons this month. So we wanted to take just a few minutes to pay tribute to former Senator Bob Dole.
Deb, not being like you, being a transplant to Kansas, there's certain things you learn or that you hear about Kansas before you move there. And I selected an image of a great Kansas sunset because we have those horizons that go on
Mhm.
forever. And it makes me think of Bob Dole because when I moved to Kansas, he was still actively involved. He was still a politician who was actively involved in political life. And I thought, well, surely Bob Dole will always be a part of Kansas's political life and American national political life. And not to mention also the fact that he was a World War II veteran and served our country wearing our nation's uniform of the armed forces, was in the military, served with great distinction, was wounded and carried that wound with him for the rest of his life. And I think we cannot overstate the debt of gratitude that all Americans owe to Bob Dole, regardless of your political party or affiliation, regardless of whether you were on the receiving end. He could have a very sharp, biting tongue. He was a really hard hitting politician, but as a man who stepped up when our nation uh, called young men to arms. He answered that call and served our nation with honor and distinction in the armed forces. And so, for that, every American, regardless of your political affiliation, owes the late Senator Dole a huge debt of gratitude.
Well, as a veteran, of course, one of the most moving images of my lifetime, I think, was when the former senator stood uh, to salute the coffin of George H.W. Bush, a fellow World War II veteran. And when he uh, there in the rotunda of the Capitol, and I can remember, um, you know, Bob Dole has been in a wheelchair for a while now, and when they wheeled him in, and there was this murmuring, they could see his sort of shuffling. They're like, what's he doing? And then just silence.
Yeah, it was incredibly moving, and I think for me, because I had not seen any images of Senator Dole for some time, it was also very jarring to see his physical condition that day, and you could tell that he was, far weaker and more frail than I had ever
Yeah,
remembered seeing him. And for him to take that effort,
yeah.
because to muster up that physical strength to stand and salute the casket of our former president, also a World War II veteran, I'm sure that took every single ounce of his physical and emotional strength that he had within him.
I'm sure.
And and that's, um there's so many who've been writing and talking about Senator Dole since his passing, and not all of the writing and the commentary and the reflection have been good. And I still have to say that one thing is important to remember: even though he was a very staunch Republican, the one thing he did understand was country before party, country before politics. and he was very good and adept at reaching across the aisle and trying to find avenues for discussion and consensus building, and but discussion that was not nasty and vitriolic. It may have been spirited, it may have, it may have been very spirited and animated, but it was not completely at the level that we see today. And so
So
I
Bob's Bob's sense of humor, oh my goodness, a wicked sense of
mhm,
humor. And of course,
yes.
President Biden shared the story about how Dole was the only Republican to vote for Amtrak, and they asked him why. And he said, because Joe Biden takes it out of Washington every night. And if we can just get Joe Biden out of Washington. And then, of course, famously, the senator had written a letter to the American people that his daughter Robin read at the services there in the rotunda. And it was a very moving letter, so typical of Bob Dole, um, expressing his faith that he knew God would be with him. And he couldn't, he was very curious to see if heaven was really like Kansas, and if so many like who had passed before him, if he would still be able to vote in Chicago. And it was and there said, of course, all his Democratic adversaries, President Clinton, who was his uh,
Mhm.
ran against for the
Yeah.
presidency, and so Dole got the last laugh. I mean, that's
Yes, he did.
bless his
You
heart.
know, Deb, I had the opportunity to attend an event at the Dole Center at the campus at the University of Kansas in Lawrence, and I did not know that the senator was going to actually be at that event, and so it was. I can't even remember what the event is anymore, but isn't that terrible? But I know I was when I was working for Bill Curtis, and Bill was on stage, and I think he was moderating. It was a debate of some kind, but Senator Dole was there, and he so many students and faculty and members of the public. It didn't matter whether they were Democrat or Republican. Everyone wanted to go up and meet him, and we were in kind of their green room area behind stage, and he came back behind stage, and he and Bill traded jokes with each other and had good laughs together, and um, but it was very humbling, but it was very interesting to meet him and to get a chance to watch him interact with people and to see that sense of humor and that wit on full display. And he really you can see why he is really one of Kansas' favorite sons. And so I know that my thoughts have been with his family, his wife Elizabeth, who had served as the national chairperson of the Red Cross. She herself
And the U.S.
ran
Senator
for
from North
office.
Carolina.
Yes, and ran for office in North Carolina.
She
And
was a
so,
U.S. Senator from North Carolina.
yes, and so she herself put her toes in the political arena.
Yeah.
I have to say, one of the images that was very moving this week from uh, his body was in state in Washington, D.C., there, and it was just so moving. The picture of um, Senator Elizabeth Dole when she walked up and bent down and put her hands on the casket and kissed the casket. It was just very, very moving. And it reminds me, and I think we all should remember, um, our politicians, our public servants, whether you agree or disagree with them, at the end of the day, they're human beings and they
Mhm.
have families and they have people who love them. And they love others. And so they're in that respect, they're just like the rest of us. And so um, we extend our deepest and sincerest sympathies to the Dole family, to the residents of his hometown. My goodness, his hometown is just reeling from that as well. You know, uh, Russell's so proud of being Bob Dole's hometown. When you drive in, the signs are there, and
Yeah.
so We're thinking of all of our friends in Russell as well.
That's right. I have to um, say, there's they unveiled a sculpture of Bob Dole not too long ago on Washburn University. Makes me very proud to be an Ichabod. That Bob Dole is also a graduate of Washburn. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah, um, just such an outpouring of love for Senator Dole and his family. And he is only the second Kansan to lie in state in the U.S. Capitol. I think there have only been 33 in all. And of course, Ike was the first, and
Mhm.
Senator Dole is the second. So, and a tremendous honor. And then, of course, also at the state capitol in Topeka before his body was taken back to Washington to be buried. So, um, he leaves an incredible legacy. You mentioned the Dole Center
Mhm.
for Politics at the KU campus, a tremendous resource and research facility, and um, he's there's barely an inch of Kansas he hasn't touched, barely a inch of
Mhm.
America he hasn't had an impact on. So, um, Senator, you will be missed. We'll be right back. 200 years of stories take more than a year to share. The Santa Fe Trail Bicentennial continues through 2025. Join us on this epic journey of exploration on America's most historic road. Find our podcast each week on truckersradiousa.com. Find us on Facebook. Find us at santafetrail.org. The Santa Fe Trail lives on.
Welcome to the Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center, right here in my hometown of Oakley, Kansas. We're the front door of Western Kansas, located on 3 main highways, I-70, US 83, and US 40. And all those roads lead to history, beautiful scenery, and adventure, no matter which direction you go. We now have an IHOP. That brand that you've trusted up and down the road in all your travels is staffed with local folks, real people just like you and me, and we're waiting on you to join us. So for fun, adventure, fuel up, fuel your body, and let's have some fun.